So, listening. There's a teaching on Kuan Yin, who is the embodiment of the compassionate awareness that listens to the cries of the world. And we have so many cries in our world these days. And in our local community, even lately, cries of the world around issues of racial separation and racial suffering. And we've been inquiring into that as a community, as I said, for quite some time. So we wanted to share with you what's been happening. And maybe we'll just drop right into it. Allie, this is Allie Rudolph, one of our teachers, and Bev, one of our guiding lights. And both have been, along with Christina, really instrumental in nudging and pushing and pulling many of us into some deeper contemplation and deeper reflection on issues of racial separation and the need for racial healing. So, Allie.
Okay, thank you. Can people hear? Doing okay? Okay. So I just wanted to start with just a little bit of background and history about what we've been doing. It's been about 6 years now since a group of us formed a committee with IMCC board to pioneer and promote a series of programs that have really been aimed at exploring how our Dharma practice can illuminate issues of social separation and injustice. And we sought to encounter and understand how divisions of power and privilege that are happening in our country and in the world are manifesting right here in our own hearts and minds. So there are many, many feelings that arise when we turn toward the deeply entrenched impact of racism. And none of us escape the conditioning of past events and circumstances generated out of hatred and ignorance over centuries. For our mindfulness practice, that's an essential part of our support for our work in deeper conversations about what indeed separates us from our own hearts and hearts of others. So through reading and inquiry and conversation with one another, our hope is that we keep waking up together, building a stronger community that's not afraid to face difficult issues and support each other in places where we get stuck. So with this intention, I'd like to summarize the history of those efforts through these 6 years and the events that have evolved, and then Bev will speak more to how this work is continuing now. And before I do this, I would really like to do a deep bow of gratitude to Christina Weaver. Would you stand for us, please? It's really through Christina's pioneering leadership and her real dedication to diversity and to what separates us that has been an inspiration to the committee and to this work going forward. And you're still an inspiration as we're going forward. And that being said, I also want to really honor Bev Wann, who has picked up the baton and is doing a wonderful job in leading us forward with our committee and the work that's evolving now. So I think both of you. So this started really with Christina's efforts back in 2011 when we had our first day-long workshop that was called Healing Separation and Raising Consciousness. And then we had a very powerful event that followed in March of 2012 called Healing Separation Through Spiritual Practice. And this was a dialogue between Jeff Frazier and Bernadine Anderson. And it really came through Jeff's heartfelt experience as a descendant of a slave owner in Louisiana, and Bernadine being a descendant of the slaves from the family of that plantation. So that evening was very powerful, and many of you might have been here to know how much that inspired us and to know the depth and the impact of this kind of work for all of us. May 2012, we had a study and practice group that offered a series of classes on bridging separation, exploring the creation of other. And we examined and shared in conversations all the isms, racism, sexism, class, age, homosexual, the whole gamut of that which separates us from each other. August 2012, we had an insight dialogue retreat on constructed and unconstructed intimacy, led by Sharon. And then in 2013, May, we had our first mindful of race workshop. And we were able to have the good fortune of a wonderful teacher and mentor and Dharma teacher, Ruth King, who led us in our first two-day weekend. Some of you were a part of that and know how powerful this work has been. And then she came back in February of 2014 for a Tuesday night talk, all in this together, cultivating the universal heart of a bodhisattva. And then March of 2014, she offered a day-long retreat on the mad mind. And then again in May, came back for the second mindfulness of race. And this was a workshop that included more of the community, the larger community that came, as well as IMCC community. And then July 2015, there was a talk by our committee for Bridging Separation and called Bridging Separations, A Look at Racism. And this was by our panel of our committee. And then that was followed in August of 2015 when Ruth again led us in a third workshop, which has launched us into what we are really evolving to currently, which Bev will pick up on and share that. So, thank you.
Hi. When I drive to the ACAC Fitness and Wellness Center downtown, I drive up Water Street going towards the university, and I take a left on 2nd Street by the Water Street parking garage. Probably you can picture this, right? And I cross over the railroad tracks, and I turn right into the ACAC parking lot. And just as I am about to turn right, I often see to my left residents of Friendship Court, the mostly African-American, low-income, subsidized housing community. In that moment, I bring my own history, my assumptions, my awareness, and my ignorance. What sense do I make of this scene? What do I say to myself that makes it okay? And most importantly, how in my mind and in my heart do I make them, separate from me? This is a small taste of the inquiry that 21 IMCC members, primarily teachers and board members, have been doing in small groups for the last year. So I'm going to briefly describe our work together. And then in a few minutes when I finish, you will get a chance to hear from other people who have done this together and a chance to share for yourself as well. So Ruth King, the teacher that Allie spoke about, strongly suggested that the leadership of IMCC commit to 1 year of inquiry into the loaded and layered question, what does it mean to be white? An investigation into privilege, into family, Virginia, and national history, a willingness to experience the raw and often painful feelings that live on the other side of denial and guilt. While at the time the suggestion to form white affinity groups did not resonate with some of us, we took her at her word that this was a crucial step toward healing separation in our hearts, in this Sangha, and in the community at large. And we were guided in part by the Insight Meditation Community of Washington, D.C.'s White Awake groups. They had been going for a while. And also informed by a book entitled Waking Up White. All three groups, there were three groups of these 21 folks, they all kind of made their own way, but they all three pursued two parallel paths. One was of reading. For how were we to know what we didn't know? So we needed to educate ourselves. And so we read books on slavery and the Jim Crow era. We read articles on the realities of being black, especially being a black man in America, police shootings, mass incarceration. And the second parallel path was that we all did some kind of reflection into our own reactions and beliefs and history. One example from my group was that we spent 1 month noting our internal and external reactions when we were in conversation with an African American. So this was a mindfulness practice that revealed insights that are either edited or not shared at all. So as you will hear from others in a few minutes, this process brought us very close together and also profoundly impacted how we see our world and how we see ourselves. Awareness guides action. Awareness guides action. So how do I now act when I understand better the persistent, systemic, institutionalized efforts to keep Black Americans from thriving? See more clearly how I benefit from being white. Feel the lack from being so distant from African Americans in Charlottesville. See that my feelings of separation help maintain the status quo, are detrimental to my own spiritual practice, and are detrimental to my ability to act wisely and in solidarity. One quite simple answer, actually, is that I now speak more frequently about oppression and racism, and I'm better at withstanding the predictable resistance that such conversations evoke, even amongst my closest friends. This year of waking up occurred during a year when our country as a whole was forced to wake up to the realities of institutionalized racism and seemed for maybe the first time to be willing to face these realities and begin to alter them. I have felt really buoyed by this perspective. And now, as we look to 2017, the picture has changed, and the need to organize and speak and act based on expanded awareness and a commitment to justice, dignity, and compassion, especially in relation to targeted groups, has taken on a new level of urgency. So I'm going to stop there, and we are going to organize you in such a way that you get to hear